Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the Online Teaching Organizing Your Online Course webinar, sponsored by Maryland Online, but graciously presented by John Bone from Allegany College of Maryland. Really appreciate him taking the time to put this together and present for us today. One of the goals that we're trying to do with Maryland Online is to get more webinars for improving your online course, or particularly for people who may be new or semi-new or looking for tricks of the trade, that kind of thing. And thus, this is the first of our series for that. John is a professor of, well, the program director and professor in multimedia technology department at Allegany. And he has also graciously agreed to share his slides after the presentation. So I will probably send those out to everyone who registered. If you're coming on and you didn't actually make contact with Kathleen, just contact her if you want the slides, or myself. Additionally, if you have topics that you're interested in, particularly for future webinars, let us know as well. You can, again, Kathleen will forward anything to me, or if you have my email, a lot of you know me, you can just email me directly. That's fine, because we will be looking to set up the spring schedule soon. Again, if you haven't muted already, please mute if you can. And if not, I may mute you throughout. I'm also going to be monitoring the questions in the chat bar. So I will kind of try to find good places to pause. And so you are welcome to type in questions throughout. And I will get them to John. If I'm for some reason ignoring, go ahead and unmute yourself and just chime in. And we'll also take some questions at the end as well. So with that, John probably has more of a introduction than I just gave. I was a pretty poor one, but I do appreciate his time, and I'm going to turn it over to you, John.
Okay, well, first of all, Wendy, thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Maryland Online. I don't know that I'm the best person to work on this topic and present on this topic. However, I was willing to do it. So I think today's talk may be beneficial if you are new to online education, or wanting to redesign a course, or starting from scratch on online design. So hopefully, I'm assuming you can see my slides. I don't see the same view as the people logged in, so I'm assuming yes. And I'll try to click through. So just a short agenda here, an introduction. I'll tell you about myself, where I'm coming from, also the face-to-face versus online, and the motives behind converting something to online. The must-haves you're going to need to take away and begin with. We'll talk about organizing and how to do that. The objectives and alignment is very important, especially if you have QM standards you have to meet, etc. We'll also talk about accessibility and UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. We'll talk about some other considerations, and then have some time at the end to discuss. As Wendy said, if you have questions throughout, please stop me, and I'd rather address those as as I'm discussing, as opposed to at the end. So let us know as soon as you have a question. I'll be happy to take that. So a little about my background in online. My undergraduate degree was completely online in information technology. So from American Intercontinental University. So I do have experience as a learner. Additionally, graduate.
Good afternoon, sir.
Hey, Tony, how you doing? So most of my graduate classes were online. I have a master's degree in education from Frostburg State University in educational technology and business administration. I've also attended, like many of us, possibly QM workshops on various topics, from alignment and course creation, etc. So I've also, here at Allegany College, I've been employed before I became full-time faculty. I was employed in the educational technology areas, which is now called ELETS department. And I was a content creator and then a supervisor of our distance learning system, etc. So I came from that department, helping faculty just like myself create content for online. I've also developed two fully online courses here at Allegany College, as well as a hybrid course. I have experience in Blackboard and now Brightspace. We were Blackboard since I started teaching in 2005, and this summer we just made a switch over to Brightspace. So I have been the instructor, Blackboard and Brightspace, and of course at Frostburg State as a learner in Blackboard. However, I do not know everything. So like I said, I may not be the best person qualified to in even the group here online. I might not be the best qualified. However, I'm willing to do it and willing to answer any questions that you may have to help you through the process, because we're all in this together, right? Okay, so we'll continue here. So talking about online versus face-to-face. So online courses are not the same as face-to-face. So we probably cannot do all the activities that we do in our face-to-face course online because the limitations of online. So we have to understand that going into it. It's not going to be the same. We can still have the same learning outcomes. However, the activities may be completely different. So we have to think of that as we're developing the course. I just said that. I need to pay attention to my slides here. But we have to remember a well-designed course is a well-designed course no matter how it's delivered. So if it's a hybrid, if it's face-to-face, online, or something we have at the college, I'll briefly talk about flex courses. A well-designed course is a well-designed course. So starting from what we're doing here today, talking about just the development and being able to start with the course, we have to think of doing it right from the beginning. So whether you do it right in a face-to-face class or here with an online instruction, it has to be well-designed and thought out. But we have to keep in mind, most of us are not starting from scratch. This could be a redesign of a current online course or a course that you teach face-to-face. So we don't have to start from scratch in most cases, unless you're very new to an institution or instruction in general. You're probably not trying to reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So if you have a face-to-face section, you have some of the understanding of course development and being able to work backwards, beginning with your learning objectives or the competencies that the students have to gain at the end of the course, and then start working backwards and planning out how do I get there from where they're coming in. So we don't always have to start from scratch, and that's great because it's more work to start from scratch, right? So we'll talk about some of the motivators. Why do we want to have courses online? Well, are we doing it just to do it? Is it, is it the popular thing to do? Well, yeah, it's a hot topic and has been for years. When I completed my bachelor's degree online, that was in 2005. So 100% online, and I gained a lot from a student perspective in those courses, and I've had some really good experiences in online learning and some really bad experiences in online learning. So as a student, so I try to take what I learned from my experiences as a student in undergrad and graduate and add those to what I do with my online courses. Keep in mind, it's not just your face-to-face class uploaded to your learning management system, whatever that is. Some instructors just want to record their class and throw it up online and think they have an online course. That is not the case. We're talking about an entire redesign of how you teach your course. So keep that in mind as we work forward or go throughout the presentation. It could be that we are forced to do this because of institutional requirements. For example, your institution has a decreased enrollment and want to enroll more students, and then online presence may be a way to go. And of course, that's just one factor. And I believe pretty much all the community colleges in Maryland have continually gone down in enrollment over the last 5 years. So how do we take what we learned? Why are students not enrolling, and why this, why that? So it could be because of the institution requirements. However, it could be that you just want to increase your offerings. For example, when somebody wants to take classes, they see, oh, this is an entirely online program. It doesn't matter where I am. So if I live or work out of town, out of the local area, I can still have class. So that's the idea of the motivators. And there are obviously more motivators than that as we look forward to online courses. However, when we're thinking about why we're doing it, just because it's a new technology, just because we can doesn't mean we should always. So keep that in mind as we move forward. Some of the must-haves that I found in course development and converting a course from face-to-face to online, the main thing as a faculty member is time. Time is extremely important, and it's extremely valuable as an instructor. Now, some institutions, I understand, offer stipends for course development, and that's great. So that's a little bit of a motivator to be able to do it, to make up some extra money as a faculty member to design a course. However, it is going to take time, and because it's going to take time, some institutions have found that that faculty members should be compensated for that. Now, we are not paid to design a course. When I started teaching in 2005, I didn't get paid for designing that face-to-face course that I was offering, or the instructor of, in the evenings, but redesigning online, and this could increase enrollment. So some institutions have found that, and some offer stipend. Of course, that's based on your institution. You'll have to check that out. Speaking of the institution requirements. For example, we have an e-course policy here at Allegany College, which outlines what an instructor has to do to be able to produce and deliver an online course. So, for example, they have to go through training, specific training for online, and it could be related to the LMS. So the learning management system, again, has changed this summer at Allegany College, and we're now on D2L Brightspace. Before that was Blackboard. So we had to go through the training in Blackboard, of course, or now Brightspace. So understanding the requirements of your institution is very important as you go through, and your institution may have an e-course policy or procedure to be able to do that. So you, again, check out your institution specifically and what needs to be done. Of course, there may be an approval process. Whether you are in that in a director position where you're in the department and chairing the department, that's great. However, when we look at the e-course policy here at the college, it has to be approved up through the dean and vice president. So keep those things in mind. Also, must-haves. Think about the equipment or technology you're going to use or need throughout the development and the administration or delivery of the course. So, for example, a webcam. Right now I'm using the webcam here on my laptop, but if you're using a desktop and do not have a webcam, that could be something you need. Additionally, a microphone. Also, the internet connection. For example, if you're not on campus teaching and you're home, you have to have a reliable internet connection to teach an online course, not only develop it. So those things we have to think about as we continue through the development of course. So what equipment or technology are you going to need? Also, very, very important, what support do you have? Now, different institutions will have different resources that they offer. So our ELETS department here at Allegany College is great. I'm not just saying that just because I used to work in that department. Very responsive, and literally my office is 50 feet from their office here in the technologies building. But if I have a question, I can go immediately to somebody in that department and get an answer. So the support here at our college is great. Hopefully your support is great as well, because administrators have learned that they need to support the faculty in this regard. So hopefully you have a great team there to support in your local institution. And then some sort of review process. For example, here at the college, we have an internal review process similar to Quality Matters, not exactly the same, but similar. And somebody or individuals in the ELETS department will review the course after it's designed and before it goes to delivery. So keep in mind, reviewing is important, because just like in writing, you as the instructor or developer of the course may see some things and think it looks this way. However, from an outsider, that review process is extremely important, because they may see something that you don't, because just that process in your head. Okay, so let's talk about some organizings, what we need to do. First of all, mind map or outline. And again, we're not necessarily reinventing the wheel, because you may already teach a very similar course to the face-to-face. So you may have all of your objectives and all the linkages and assessments all ready. So it's not a redevelopment from scratch. You already have some things, I'm sure. However, maybe you can start from scratch. And a good thing about developing an online course, you're developing a new course. So some of the things that the good that you have in the face-to-face class, you can convert that to the good in online, and then maybe leave out some of the things that didn't work in the class. So it's a redevelopment. You can rethink your entire course, and I love that opportunity. So it's your chance to change it up and fix things or improve things as you're developing. So mind mapping online, and there's various tools online to do that, to mind map or flow chart how your course will work. But having that outline, that's recently, most recently, I'm thinking 2 years ago, I developed a entirely new computer literacy course, and it was designed for 100% online. And as we looked at that, I was thinking, well, how's it going to organized? And okay, well, I can organize it within units, and then each unit will have several modules in the unit with various topics, etc., as we continue through the course. So it worked out really well. We also have to think about, is this going to be asynchronous or synchronous? Meaning, are students going to join in live at a certain time, or is it asynchronous and they can do their work whenever? Now, some instructors prefer either or. Some instructors will make synchronous sessions available, but not mandate it that students have to participate at that given time. So keep that in mind. So we have to figure out that. And going back to the technology, streaming video content would be more consuming in bandwidth. So as we're streaming this video, like I have my video on right now, if you're having trouble with your bandwidth, it might be because there's video streaming. Now, hopefully not, because we're generally institutions and we should be good. Additionally, a clear starting point is important. For example, in my courses that I have developed, I always have a start here, a button. The first thing they see in the content area is start here. So it's pretty evident that students know where to start. And that's very important when we're looking at that. So what students need to know is in that section as we talk about the course. So what is expected of them? Their instructions, make sure they're clear expectations, and the technology requirements. Because if this is an online course, some students, all they have is their cell phone. So are they going to have to come to campus, to the library, to complete their coursework? Probably, likely. They have to know that up front. So they have to know what is required of them and how they are going to be able to make this course most worthwhile and in their learning experience. Consider an introductory video. In research shows that putting a face to the name of the instructor gives a benefit that is sometimes immeasurable. When students see that you're a real person, you're not just typing back and forth. And there are certain learning management systems that will allow you to respond in a video as opposed to just typing a response. So some of that is beneficial. So consider video content, and especially a video introduction of yourself. And that puts the face to the name. So even though that I was an online student, if I would have some contacts or contact with the instructor in some way before taking the course, I was a little more at ease. So seeing their personality, so seeing myself on the screen, I can see I'm a real person, right? You're not, you might be more personable than just your writing. So keep that in mind. Some sort of introduction, and then building a sense of collaboration, which is very important in an online environment. When you're sitting in a face-to-face classroom, you see all the students around, and as you're a student, you see others like you. Maybe you're older and you see other older students in the classroom, younger traditional students, whatever. You see others around you and you can take in that information. So having students introduce themselves in some way, I think in an online environment is very important. And so one of my first week's assignments, I have a discussion board where students have to post a little bit about themselves, and I give them a prompt. Other instructors do this differently. In one of my master's classes, my graduate classes at Frostburg State, there was an instructor that had us introduce ourselves by taking a picture of a shoe that would represent our personality. So interestingly enough, so some more engaging activity where students say, okay, well, I actually took a picture of a Croc and put it on in my introductory post because I like to be comfortable. So so taking a picture of a Croc, a Croc, that was my post. So something like that, again, more engaging. And for example, in one of my assignments online, I have students, they have to draw or design an icon. So think about the icons that are on your cell phone, your desktop, and applications. Somebody has to design those icons in the graphic user interface. So I have them actually draw and they can draw online. They can do, if they know Photoshop or Illustrator or something like that, or Word, or they can draw it with crayons, take a picture of it and upload it. So think of the activities that might be beneficial like that, more engaging in that respect. So let's talk about objectives and alignment. Of course, determining the objectives is pretty important, and that's where the flow charting we talked about comes into play. And again, you may have the objectives already ready because you've already taught this course in the face-to-face, or maybe this is a redesign of your online course. But first we have to determine those objectives. We talked about that. And then we have to determine what meaningful assignments will be relevant to meet those objectives. So as I said before, some of the activities we have in our face-to-face class may not work in the online environment. So for example, a collaborative tool like a wiki may not be used in a classroom, but the idea of a wiki is being able to add to the conversation, make a list, so to speak. So when I was designing one of my courses, I put in a wiki and students had to add to the list. So they would go in and edit and add to the list. So they're adding to the conversation. We can do that in the face-to-face class as well. Students raise their hand and we write a list on the board of whatever we're talking about. But the collaborative tool like a wiki, or Also a discussion board. Many of us have discussion boards. And that activity, being able to collaborate. So we generally have requirements, for example, in the discussion board that says you have to respond to another student or a couple other your students, etc. We also have groups, the ability to establish groups within your learning management system. So whether it be in Blackboard, Brightspace, and Canvas, whatever your institution is using, there's generally a way to create groups. Now, groups could be for one project or the entire semester. So it's up to you how you want to design that. However, being able to be interactive with a group can be very beneficial. Again, with when your students are looking to fit in the classroom, especially I found that in some of the courses that I have, they're first year and even first semester students. So they can be intimidated very easily. So we want to be careful. We don't intimidate students like that. We want them to succeed. And that's I tell my students, I want to watch you walk across the stage and get your diploma or your degree, certificate, whatever it is. I want to see that. So I encourage them. I do whatever I can to have the students be successful. Now, I'm not a hand holder and I don't give out grades, but I try to push them outside of their comfort zone and be, in my field, creative in that response. One thing we can consider in online education is video. So video can be engaging, and it may be the best thing we can offer, because video, adding in pictures and sound together in various ways, allows us to have those different modalities and different senses motivated. So you're not just reading, you're seeing it, you're hearing it, etc. So consider video in your course. Like I said, the video introduction could be a simple webcam. However, some of the content in your course may be a little bit more robust. So, but be warned, video is work. Whether you're comfortable in front of a video camera, like I don't care to be in front of a camera usually. And my career before I became a staff member, faculty here at the college, I was a photojournalist for almost 10 years. I prefer to be behind the camera. And I have a face for radio. So with that, be mindful. You may find video content, and there's plenty of video content out there on different sites, like of course YouTube or Vimeo or other content websites that, again, don't reinvent the wheel. If you have a specific topic, for example, social media marketing in a business class, there's probably some content out there that is already created. So find some relevant content. Now be careful. We do not want to have too much in one video, because I've never heard of students binge watching their classes. So it's not Netflix. So they're not going to sit down and watch hours of content of you just talking to, narrating a PowerPoint. Be very cautious. So a good rule of thumb, limit your topics in each video. So don't try to cover too much. Make short videos that are relevant to each topic. So for example, in a module or in a unit, you may discuss 15 different topics. You may have 15 different videos that are a minute or 2 minutes each. And one of the challenges is, how do you make something like that succinct and make sure you can squeeze as much into a minute or two as possible? So that's some thinking you have to do. But again, here at Allegany College, we have the ELETS department, and they are very willing to help us and work with us to create this content. And as I said before, when I worked in that department, I actually was one of the, probably the person that would help faculty create the content, such as short lessons. So let's continue thinking of everybody in an online course design. So of course, we talk about universal design, or UDL, universal design for learning, being able to put forth content in various ways. For example, you have a text document or a website that students have to read, or they're reading their textbook. What, in addition to just straight reading, how can we reinforce what's in the textbook? So again, there might be a short video. Maybe it's a podcast that you found that's extremely relevant to whatever topic you're talking about. Videos, graphics. So sometimes infographics can explain complex concepts. So if you can find one, or if you can design one, and maybe you're not good at designing something like that, somebody at your college in the ELETS department or the instructional technologies, or somebody like that may be able to help you create that infographic. So also we have to consider accessibility.
Hey,
Now,
John,
go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before you get too much farther along in accessibility, going back to the video, Barb Miller had a question about whether there were different copyright issues to be concerned about with, say, YouTube clips that we would show face-to-face versus in an online course.
So copyright, it's something that I teach because I am multimedia technology and photos and videos. So it's something that I teach. So in copyright, copyright exists life of the author plus 70 years. So we do have to consider copyright. However, if we are sharing a link, we are not, for example, we want to show this YouTube clip. We show it in the class, and we do have fair use. And copyright is a very gray area. It's a gray discussion overall because of fair use. Now, probably there's somebody, an expert on your campus about copyright. So in the library, there are people that can help me with copyright and content. Now, I'm pretty mindful of copyright because I don't want somebody to take my photographic work and try to pass it off as their own. So I'm mindful of copyright. So if we are using, just like if we were to show a clip in class, we're not showing a major content. For example, if we're discussing about a movie where a character in that movie has a specific disease that a nursing class is talking about at any given point, we're not showing the whole movie. We're not showing the most important content. We're showing a small clip of that. Now, the small clips may be on YouTube. So if you find a clip on YouTube, you can then share that with the class, right? YouTube then, because they're the content holder, they are responsible for the copyright considerations there. So that's why if you upload something to YouTube and it hears some copywritten music in the background, it'll flag it and mute that audio. I've had that done before from a wedding or Facebook, etc. So you may have issues with that, but as long as you are linking, or in most LMSs, we can embed content into our course, meaning we have the embed code we get easily from YouTube on the share button, put the embed code right in there, and students can play the clip right from the LMS. So there's a little window there. It plays directly from YouTube through the content management system. Because we're sharing the link, we are not holding that, we're not copying that material, and that is the best practice as far as copyright. So you do not want to download anything and then upload it to share, because technically that is copying. So if it is copywritten, and anything is copywritten, whether it says it's copywritten or not, as soon as, according to copyright law, as soon as it becomes intangible form. So if it exists, you can't copyright a thought, but if you write that thought down on a napkin, it is then copywritten because it's intangible form. So that's the idea of copyright. However, if we're linking our courses to content outside like that, the person who has that on their server, like YouTube or whatever it is, has to bear the responsibility of the copyright. So never upload something that you do not have rights to. So for example, if I want to show a picture of something in a biology class, if I didn't take that picture, we cannot download it and then upload it to our LMS. Find a picture online and link your course to that. Unless, of course, you have a microscope camera and you can take a picture of that, whatever you're talking about at that time. So copyright is pretty important. Now here at Allegany College, we have an entire course that every online instructor has to take, in our learning management system, a course about copyright. So we here at Allegany College have been educated. If we teach online, we have to go through this coursework, which one of the courses is copyright. So we have to understand it before we build and teach online. So hopefully that answers your question, and I'd be happy to talk about more offline after the presentations if you have any questions. Going on to thinking of everybody, accessibility, it should be second nature at this point. And again, here at Allegany College, within the requirements that we have to go through as an online instructor, we have to take an accessibility course to make sure our courses are accessible and learn, for example, about contrast. There is a certain degree of contrast that we need in text compared to background, so the visually impaired can see well. So my slides, for example, it's a dark background with light text, which it's a nice contrast. However, if I had gray text, which this is actually a template that our PR department allows us to use, that's branded with our colors and logos, etc. And when they sent it to me, that text you see which says universal design and accessibility was actually gray. I turned it white because I didn't like the contrast. It was more difficult to see. Those type of things. Additionally, to make sure your photographs, as you put photographs in your course, make sure they have alt tags. For example, visually impaired people, they cannot see an image, so there's a description of the image. And again, when we take our course here at the college, we're taught all those things. So keep those things in mind. Again, your college, your institution has to be aware of accessibility, whether it be the sidewalk or the doorways to get in a building or delivering online content. Your institution is responsible for that. And there's probably some expert at your institution to help you through that process. Think of varied assignments or giving students a choice how they complete assignments. For example, some students will like to write a paper. Some students will present a PowerPoint in class. For one of my face-to-face classes, I actually have a choice in a final project where they can write a paper, and I forget what the requirements is. It might be 1,500 word paper, or they can present a PowerPoint in class. So I give them a choice, what they want to do. So keep in mind, not everybody is comfortable getting up in front of people and talking, right? The number one fear, talking. So people would rather be in a casket at a funeral than giving the eulogy. So various assignments and allowing students to participate in various ways and assessing them in different ways. Keep those activities in mind. Also, as you're uploading content to your learning management system, keep in mind generic documents, meaning, for example, if you upload a PowerPoint and you want your students to view this PowerPoint, if they don't have PowerPoint, they may not be able to view it. So up front, maybe you need to tell the students in your course, you need PowerPoint to view this, or something, an alternative like OpenOffice. So keep those things in mind. So in PowerPoint, you can actually save a document as a PDF. PDF is very generic. You can have a PDF reader on any device nowadays to be able to download something and view that content. So keep that in mind. Generic documents are best. For example, I teach photography. Very rarely do I upload a Photoshop document, because if you do not have Photoshop, you're most likely not going to be able to open up a Photoshop document. So I have to make sure it's a generic document, like a JPEG image, as opposed to a Photoshop document. If I have images that I want them to combine together, I may have to upload several JPEG images for them to then combine in Photoshop. So make sure your documents that are available to students, because they're generic. They're generic enough. So even a Word document, it's not a absolute that everybody has Word and be able to use a Word or display a Word document and edit a Word document. So if you're on a Mac, it could be Pages. Pages is very specific, but generally Pages can save in a Word document or a PDF. Now here at Allegany College, any student, because of Office 365, they can download or use the online Office 365 to obtain and gain access to a Word document. Your institution may be different. So you have to think how students are going to access documents and making sure they have the ability to see the documents that you want them to see. Okay, so once we have our course and we're good and we've ran it for the first semester and it was horrible, right? I think that every time that I'm delivering something like this presentation, I'm probably rambling and it's probably not the best, but review and then evaluate, redesign, change if necessary. Now, I tell my students in a new course, or maybe it's a flex course or even a hybrid course, I tell them this is the first time I'm doing it, so any feedback is very important to me, and we can change mid-semester if there's something that doesn't work. And for example, the first time I offered my hybrid course, I had my modules close once it was finished. So module 1 is closed. We're on module 2. Module 2 is finished, and we submitted all whatever we were doing there. Module 2 is closed. Module 3 opens, and students didn't like that because they asked if we want to go back and look at something from module 2, they couldn't do that. So it was a simple setting in Blackboard at the time where I would make it visible or turn off the ability to close it. So after a certain date, they could still see it, but they wouldn't be able to submit any assignments or whatever in that regard. So I'm willing to take feedback, and now if something doesn't make sense to me, I might gather feedback from fellow faculty or instructional design here, just to see what should I do. The students have suggested this, and think of that, the plus and minuses of determining what worked, what didn't work, and how can we do things differently if it didn't work. So it's a continual process, just like in your face-to-face classroom. I'm sure each one of us do this already in a face-to-face. If an assignment didn't work, if students didn't get the concept we're trying to learn or teach in one of our lessons, how can we redo it or re-explain it so they do get it this time? And maybe through assessment, we see that students fell short in this area or this module of the course. Maybe next time we need to spend 2 weeks on this module and have additional resources thrown at that module. So more videos, more discussions, more lectures, PowerPoints, whatever it is, you have to decide that as the content creator. Some other considerations that I thought of outside of what we have just talked about. Online office hours. So if you're teaching a 100% online class, consider having online office hours. So that could be at various times throughout the day and various tools. For example, we're using Zoom here, maybe a GoToMeeting, or using Teams in Microsoft, Skype, however you choose to do that. But consider students are 100% online. They could be 100% online for 5 different classes. So they may never come to your campus, depending on what they're taking, of course. So consider having online office hours, somehow being accessible online at a certain time to students. Now, of course, you'd be accessible through email, but it is not instant messaging or something like that. So consider it having a certain time where students can log into this certain site and being able to talk to you to ask questions. So I think it's especially important at the beginning of the semester when students are floundering a little bit how the semester is going to go, and if there's additional technology. For example, in my computer literacy course, we use a Cengage product called SAM, Student Assessment Management, and students have to connect to that from Brightspace, and it's very explicit instructions in Brightspace. However, I get emails constantly that first week, and we just had a delayed start last week here at the college. So I have a delayed start section of computer literacy where students are emailing me asking, well, how do I connect to SAM? What's the institution code, etc. I'm asking them, did you follow the directions that is laid out in the start here information of the course? And usually the answer is no, they did not read it. So I direct them to it's a section that I labeled technically speaking, where it outlines what you needed for the course and how to connect to SAM. So making sure you can reinforce and say, it's in this area, or maybe you copy and paste the directions right in your email response, but being accessible to the student, consider online office hours because they're an online student. They may only be online and never show up at campus, and you'll never see them at the door. Here's a big point about online design. Be flexible. Flexibility is very important because you and your students, and I don't say if you have technical issues, you will have technical issues, whether it be your PDF reader on your laptop is not working and you have to go to the IT department to have it fixed. Here at Allegany College, we can't do anything with any of our machines. We don't have administrator rights to be able to install an update to a PDF reader if we need to. So that may be an issue. However, students are going to have issues as well. I just got an email last night. A student couldn't complete a project because his internet was going in and out. Okay, that's fine. I'm pretty flexible and understanding until I get to the point where I think I'm being taken advantage of. And then I can look back and say, okay, there's a pattern with this certain student who can never turn in something on time, and it's always that the internet is down. Well, if that's an issue, you need to contact that student and say, maybe during the, before the due date, you need to go to the library to take care of this, or maybe go to a friend's house to get online to be able to complete your project. But there will be issues. Understand that in those issues, students are going to have issues. You're going to have issues too. So be ready for it and be flexible. Don't panic, but just be flexible and be ready to get it done. I also recommend connecting with others at your institution. Again, I work closely with ELETs. They're right down the hallway from me. They're the best, I think. So I think being able to make those connections at your college is very important. However, also others in your field, because you're not the first one to design an online course at your institution. There are others that have been through this process, and others that would be willing to mentor you or give you what they found that works in your LMS specifically, or your discipline. For example, in microbiology, maybe this works over this. So maybe this textbook resource is better than this textbook resource. So again, going back to don't reinvent the wheel. Seek out help from your colleagues, because most of the time, if somebody asks for help, you're not going to be denied help. So don't be afraid or intimidated to ask for help from others, including me. If you have any questions that I can answer, I'd be happy to answer. So just in conclusion, we said this will not be easy. So just want to make that perfectly clear, what you're getting yourself into. It will not be easy, but I think it's very rewarding because you're offering something to the students that some students may not be able to take. Maybe it's an Iraqi veteran who is plagued with PTSD, who cannot sit in a classroom and have that surrounding, but they can take your online course. imagine, I mean, it's accessible to somebody that could not sit in the classroom, and they can still get that education. So it's extremely rewarding when you think about those things, but that's just one example. How about somebody who is sick, who is taking chemotherapy? My wife had breast cancer last year and pretty sick with chemo treatments, etc. So they're sick, they can't come to class. Online is their only solution. You can help them get that degree with your online design. So I think that's a very important, very rewarding, but up front, it's not going to be easy. But there are people out there to help you, like your ELETS department or educational technologies or instructional designers at your institution. Any course takes time. So whether you're designing a face-to-face course or an online course or anything in between, it's going to take time. So make sure you plan out time. For example, in our e-course policy here at Allegany College, we have a process, a timeline, where you can't just say you're going to offer an online course and offer it. You have to get it approved and run it through the process, the internal process here, to be able to offer that course. So it's going to take time to design it. So don't neglect that, because I think planning makes a difference. In my profession, in multimedia technology, we talk about video and pre-production in video. Think of a feature film. Filming that movie is a very small part of the actual movie. It might be several weeks or several months of filming a feature film, but they have been planned for it for years. Writing a script and then planning out locations, getting actors, etc. So the year's worth of planning only takes a couple weeks to shoot, but then we have to edit then too. So we go back and fix what we need before it's debuted, right? So that process of planning, putting the course together, having it reviewed, and then publicizing it or offering the course. So planning is very important in this case. Make sure you create meaningful assignments. Make sure you create assignments that align and feed into your objectives. Universal design and accessibility, very important. However, it's kind of standard nowadays to make sure your course is accessible. After delivery, review and modify as necessary. And, expand on the things that worked, maybe retract a little bit on the things that didn't work and replace those with something else. And finally, be flexible. This is if you're new to online learning or new to designing a course, you need to be flexible. And that's kind of a pitch to an offering we're going to do in November, I believe. Wendy, you could tell me when, because I don't even remember. Here at Allegany College, we have been working on what's called flex courses. And I have presented on flex courses at the state level in a couple national conferences as well, where students can choose how they attend class. They can choose online, synchronous, asynchronous, or attend the face-to-face class that is synchronous at a given time. But the best part of flex learning is being able to change that throughout the semester. So you don't have to do only online. You don't have to only come face-to-face. So for example, if they're having, maybe some students are okay with a certain topic, they don't have to come to class, but they complete their online work. Other topics might be extremely challenging and they want that face-to-face interaction in the classroom. So I was the pioneer here at Allegany College doing the flex course, and they are now offering flex courses at Montgomery College after I presented at MDLA a couple years ago. And then colleagues from Montgomery College and I presented at the USDLA this past May and had a good response from that. So flex courses, I'll have another session in November about that, and please be looking forward to that. But I'm willing to share more about flex courses. So with that, is there any questions? You can unmute your mic or type in the chat box. I know we had that one about copyright, but I'm willing to answer whatever else. In the meantime, I'll just put up this slide, which my contact information, just jbone@alleghany.edu is the email. Feel free to contact me. I'll be happy to share however I can to help you through the process.
And do unmute yourself if you do want to ask a question. I did unmute people on the phone who may not even know that they were muted, but please jump in and ask questions. We have a few minutes. I do have one for you, Jen, which came up actually from someone else in email who couldn't attend today, but they were asking about tools, and I'm changing it a little bit from what the person asked, but they were asking about like tools that they could touch on. And what I was thinking was, you were talking, obviously Alleghany has a good supportive department to help you with things like videos, making it accessible, those kinds of things. Do you have any tools, kind of websites or certain things that you use that anybody could possibly access, maybe an app or something that would be helpful to anyone who might be, not just accessibility, but maybe, like you said, maybe they don't want to use YouTube, but they want to use some kind of video interaction or anything along those lines?
There are various tools out there, and I remember going through my master's degree program at Frostburg State, because it was educational technology. There are different tools out there to be able to have more engaging activities or lessons for your students. So again, a variety, any specific one. For example, Brightspace offers an app called Pulse, and Pulse is an app that when you log in as the instructor, you can go in and do anything you can online if you were sitting in front of your computer, but students can access, I had students take quizzes on their cell phone. So that app was very valuable and something that the Blackboard app really didn't do, and that was one of the things in consideration in changing from Blackboard to Brightspace. So I like that app for Brightspace. Of course, I'm not a salesman of Brightspace. However, we're just learning it here at Allegany College. Additionally, any apps, interactivity, for example, if you want to record something on your cell phone, upload it to the learning management system. It's hard to describe a process for any one device because there's so many different devices out there. For example, the iPhone is going to act differently than Android or a Windows operating system. So, but there are plenty of websites that would help do specific things. And to just mention one, it's hard to say because just like in our ELETS department, they would ask, well, what do you want to do? And then maybe this tool might be working or work best for you, or this tool over here. So to describe one specific tool, I really can't. However, I do like the ability to be able to embed things into your learning management system. And that's something that I did with Blackboard and now Brightspace. And because in my learning, I did not like the idea of going outside of the learning management system. So I had instructors put links in, which took me somewhere else. And I didn't care for that idea, going somewhere else. And now with different learning management systems, if we embed that video, they're never learning or never leaving our LMS. So they don't have to with the embed. When I upload a certain document, so Brightspace automatically converts it to a PDF if it's a Word document. So it's available and they can view it right there in their learning system.
Well, thank you. Are there any other questions? Again, remember, you will need to unmute. Well, thank you so much, John. I am going to make the recording of this available. We're trying to record all of our webinars and put them up on the Maryland Online YouTube channel. Don't go to it right now. There's not much there, but we're getting started, and maybe in a couple of months, check back again. And if you have any questions, either about the webinar itself or for John, you can email myself or email Kathleen and she'll forward it, and we'll get back to you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much, and we will send slides and the link out shortly.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.